All right, we are here at the Ropeadope room in East Philadelphia for another episode of 21 Soul. And for those of you who are students of elocution, I am here with Snack Cat. For all the rest of you, it's Snack Cat.
Yeah.
Welcome, Aleksi Glick.
Great to be here with you.
Chantal Mitvalsky.
Thank you.
I got
Yes,
it right?
that is
and
right.
Jeff Koch.
Yeah.
Man, practice makes perfect.
Nailed it.
Nice.
Welcome to
Thank
East
you for
Philadelphia.
having
Thanks for having us,
us.
yeah.
It's great to be here.
We got to start with a name.
Okay, so I guess it's kind of a funny story. It's really dumb, but it's funny.
Dumb is
so
what we do.
about 4 years ago, when me and Jeff were kind of thinking about the band. This is my co-founder right here, as well as Nathan, drummer, and then so I used to just have a lot of gigs in the city that there would just be a bunch of snacks on, and I always say let's go get some snacks, and then this trumpet player Benny Benak started calling me the snack man, and then somehow it caught on, and people, when they would just be playing a gig with me, would just be like, I'm playing with the snack man tonight. And then Jeff, when we were thinking about starting the band, said we should call it Snack something, and I was like, yeah, it sounds great. And then we thought of different animal names, and it almost was Snack Rat, but
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine if it was Snack
we
Rat?
went with Cat. Yeah.
Well, because
Yeah.
a lot
I'm
of us.
saying.
It's hilarious.
Had you called me,
Yeah.
So
I might have said Snack Rat is
Snack
the way
Rat?
Snack Rat.
to go. Yeah.
If we were gonna be a grunge band, I think we would have gone with Snack
Oh,
Rat.
there you go. This
That's
is
true.
jazz. This is
Yeah.
jazz, right? Sort of, right?
Sort of.
But
yeah.
we
that's right.
chose Cat because a lot of us are also jazz musicians, and
It
Jazz
is.
Cat. So
Yeah.
kind of stuck with that.
Good intro there. I read the bio. It says that many members of the band have played with some very notable names in the business. Let's start with you, Jeff. How did you come to all this?
To Snack Cat or just playing
To music in general.
To
and
music.
read your bio.
My bio. Okay, so I started playing
in 45 seconds or less.
I started playing when I was like 12.
Hurry up.
Talk fast. Talk quickly. Quicker.
No, so I started as an electric bass player, and really influenced by the Ramones and punk music. I'm from
Nice.
New York City, just like Aleksi actually, and so very influenced by that. Started playing upright bass maybe a year or two later, and got into jazz via Charles Mingus and political jazz and stuff.
Interesting.
And then I went to Manhattan School of Music, and a little after graduating, I met Aleksi. So, yeah.
But you've had some gigs along the way.
Oh,
after
I've had
Manhattan
a
School
bunch
Music.
of gigs, yeah.
You've been on the road with some of the
I wouldn't
Cats?
say the Cats, but a lot of just my friends and stuff. But I played in the city with Randy Brecker, John Faddis, I guess trumpet guys or something.
name dropping.
Look
Back
at you.
up to the
Yeah.
punk rock. So who was the bass player in the Ramones?
Dee
Dee Ramone.
Dee Ramone. And actually, my first gig ever when I was 14 was at CBGB's.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have your
Wow.
black fingernails at that point?
No, that was a little bit before the
Okay.
black fingernails.
Damn it.
I had an emo face too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. He had
I
an
have
emo
one every
face.
night.
Yeah.
I gotta
Yeah, right. You wake
Pretty
up
much.
with the fingernails painted. Yeah.
Then I get up the next day and get back at it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, the Ramones. That's the first time that anyone has mentioned the Ramones on the show, and I think we're gonna have to bring it up every time. So.
That's great.
Chantal?
Yes. So I am the Australian. I am the international one of the international flavors in the band.
Wait to back up a second. So Chantal
Yes.
Mitvalsky is not what I would first think of when I think of an Australian
For an Aussie name, no, this is very true. Well, my father is actually American, and I was born in the U.S., but we moved to Australia when I was about 5 years old. My mom grew up in Australia, so we went back there, and I just returned 2 years ago to move to New York.
You were studying music there?
I did kind of a jazz degree a while ago, and then from there I was just working in jazz, but then also in a lot of soul bands, funk bands, R&B. I just started really mixing with a lot of different genres, and that was kind of what was exciting to me, and why I think I felt like New York was going to be a really good space for me, just because there's so much kind of really interesting crossover genre music happening, and I just kind of felt like it was the right place for me to be.
And you're not alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Aleksi Glick.
Yeah.
While I'm on the names,
Yeah.
Aleksi?
Yeah, so my parents are named Mike and Emily, and they're like hippies, so they wanted me and my brother to have K's in our name because apparently that's a master letter. So my brother's
Really?
name is Kai, which
It's like
is
the
a
power
Korean
letter?
name. Yeah, that or a V. But there aren't a lot. I mean, you don't want to. Victor's a pretty
Victor.
shitty name, so like Sorry, I'm
Apologies
sorry. Yeah.
To
Yeah,
all the victors.
sorry, all the
out there.
victors. Yeah. I don't want to cause any
How could
drama.
you say that?
I mean, it's okay. I guess like
It's the winner.
Yeah, the victor. Yeah, it's true. But I don't know. I always root for the underdog.
Plus, we must respect our Russian
Yeah.
overlords
So
now.
yeah.
So let's not,
You're like,
let's not
Yeah,
criticize
yeah.
Victor.
Yeah, it's true. I'm sorry. Sorry, Putin. I do have some Russian ancestry.
because he's definitely listening
Yeah.
to this right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Don't offend him.
I'm sure
sorry.
he's listening to
That's
everything.
not a good idea.
Everything. But Aleksi does sound like a Russian or Eastern European.
Yeah, it is. So
that-
I actually
intentional?
am I'm honestly like my family on both sides has been in New York. Like my dad grew up in Washington Heights. My mom grew up in Queens. Like their parents grew up in New York too. Like I'm like third or fourth generation, New York City on both sides. But yeah, they Aleksi, they like the name. Also, my dad somehow knew he's a musician too, and he somehow knew I was going to be a musician, and he thought Aleksi Raphael would be a great stage name. My middle name is Raphael. But then I didn't go by it because I thought, well, unless I'm like playing like some kind of like, new age classical music where I'm like dressed in a purple suit, or something like that, that wouldn't quite fit the vibe.
Plus, the rappers and the pop stars are killing that whole concept right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They're just like,
I'm just trying to get
Prince
my-
was cool.
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
now it's like
Yeah.
Tekashi 69.
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't even
Yeah.
know. I don't even know what it
Trying to
is.
get my head around if Alexi's like if we knew him by Aleksi Raphael, like how that would just change.
That would change a
who
lot.
he is. It would change so much.
I would wear a lot of hair gel and constantly be
It's a
doing
PH.
this.
It's a PH.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
It's the
beautiful.
right way. So we have all of this different background and influence, right? We've talked about the Ramones. We talked about Australia coming to jazz and jazz vocal, and your story. How it makes a lot more sense to me because when I listen to your music, I can't really track it back to any particular thing.
Yeah.
It feels like this melting pot.
Yeah.
How did it all
I
come
mean,
together?
I think. Well, first, let me just start off, by saying this is the first project that I've ever written for or been in where I'm not trying to make the music sound like anything. Like we aren't trying. I'm not when I'm writing it. I'm not saying like, and
Let's do a funk song.
yeah, I'm not saying let's say this is going to be a funk song, this is going to be an R&B tune. This is going to be a rock song or anything, So personally, I just have always grown up loving so many different kinds of music. My dad's a folk musician, so I got really into like songwriting from a very young age. He was like kind of part of the whole like village folk scene thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I, just because of the musicianship, I got really into jazz at a young age. Still play tons of jazz just because it makes me happy. But I just love classic rock. I love, I got so into funk and R&B and just all those different types of music have just kind of really influenced, my just writing now and
That's
also
the lyrical piece, right? Like
lyrical piece, but also rhythmically, kind of what like a lot of the Snack Cat melodies actually are a lot more syncopated than you generally would have sort of in your standard sort of pop or rock song, and I think that kind of comes from that. And
Interesting.
but yeah, lyrically, a lot of the folk stuff has like really influenced.
Do you start with words?
I'd say about 70% of the time I start with the melody or the harmony. But yeah, there are some times that I do start with the words, that I will go to just like, let's say, I'll have just a concept for a song and write out a chorus or a verse, and then like generally the band will help me arrange it. Chantal actually has helped me, write a couple of songs too.
How do you come to that? Like you write your own songs
I mean, I do write my own songs, but I'm in terms of us writing together, it's sort of started off with Aleksi having some kind of idea. I mean, generally like harmonically and maybe a little bit of a melody line, and then I've kind of taken it from there. And then we actually wrote the lyrics for the song that I co-wrote with you together, which was interesting for me because generally people will kind of have me compose melody and lyrics, and so I was kind of generally used to doing that all myself. But the process of actually writing lyrics with someone else is really interesting because you get a different take on things, and I think that worked really well for the song.
Yeah.
It went somewhere else as well, that I maybe wouldn't have taken just on my own.
And is Jeff involved as well in some of the writing process?
I feel like I'm more of like helping with the like just once Aleksi and Chantal like have like put the song more or less together, I'm part of like the arranging.
Yeah.
Like helping like figure out like, oh, maybe like let's do a hit here, or like
This should
more like
come in.
little like detail.
Yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing about Snack Out. We're all such close friends and trust each other so much musically that, you know, when a song is done, we never say this is it and it's final. We always workshop it in rehearsal, and, you know, everyone, you know, has added to the arrangement, you know, of some song in the band at some
You
point.
guys are a band.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Like an actual band.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
like it's not like, you know, this is, you know, me or this is Chantal or, you know, it's really, it's, you know, it's a band. Now, with that being said, you know, a few of us really help kind of, you know, of course, lead it, you know, but it really is a band where everybody is involved. Yeah.
I think the great bands are that. There's a great story that I heard years ago where the Beatles, John Lennon and Paul McCartney, were at a party, and they went over. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards were like not part of the party. They were over in the corner doing something.
Yeah, yeah.
And John walked over and was like, "What are you doing?" Like, "Come join the party." I'm like, we just got this idea and we had to finish out this song.
Right.
And he's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, you know, Keith had this experience and this happened on the way over. And John was like, you're writing about something that happened in your life? Like,
Interesting.
you write the like lyrics that are real? Like,
Yeah.
And then he went home and wrote the Beatles song "In My Life."
Oh, wow.
really?
Oh, my
That was his
God.
first
That's cool.
inner reflective
Damn.
experience song, right? But just that process that's a golden era.
Yeah.
And you're doing that, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much. I mean, yeah, it's definitely like, yeah, I really like to write about things. Well, one, yeah, you know, experiences that I've had, you know, personally, but also I really like to, you know, experiences that I've had with other people and then try to put myself in the other person's shoes. That's one thing that I do a lot in writing. You know, that's kind of what, you know, sort of like Leaving LA is about, you know.
Well, that's what makes people
yeah.
respond to it, right?
Yeah.
Who are your favorite songwriters lyrically?
Oh man, that's really tough. You know, I really love like John Prine. You know, I think he's a great lyricist. I think Pete Seeger is a great lyricist. I think just as far as not so much even the substance as much as just how the lyrics sound and how
Wordplay and sound.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
honestly, like Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, like you know, Zeppelin, their lyrics they just sound cool. There's like, you know, they have the right, you know, syllables in the right places or whatever, you know.
Right.
You know, Stevie Wonder too. You know, same thing with that. You know,
Interesting.
Yeah,
Everyone like Zeppelin and John Prine, they all kind of they tell the lyrical story as over time. Like
Yeah.
the 3 or 4 minutes of the song is them having an experience, right?
Yeah, and I feel like, yeah, I mean, they also, those bands, you know, really like are able to put themselves in another person's shoes and then write, you know, or those people, you know, it's like,
Well, it's everyday people kind of.
yeah,
vibe.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and it's not, you know, there's nothing superficial about it. It's not, you know, like so much of today's writing is about, you know, like, you know, I'm not saying this is always bad, but it's like true love or
I don't listen to any of that.
you know,
You know
it's
that,
like,
right?
yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, I get to, yeah,
I don't have time.
yeah.
But it's
After
it's
listening to music at work.
Yeah.
yeah, but
So,
it's storytelling, and I think if you understand that, then that's what you're gonna be influenced by. You know, you want to tell like a good story when
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
writing lyrics, when you're singing lyrics, like that's kind of part of it, and you want to bring people along with that. So I think the lyrics are really important. You don't want to kind of bypass that or
Yeah.
make it
Right.
superficial or non-authentic. It has to be a true narrative. You know, to
Words matter.
connect.
Yeah.
Words matter.
Definitely.
I'm a true.
Yeah,
It's funny that
definitely.
I'm involved with the jazz label and there's so much instrumental music because my heart is with words and poetry.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, okay, obviously we're overlooking Bob Dylan is
I was gonna say
like
Bob
the
Dylan
most
and
amazing
Joni
wordsmith.
Mitchell.
I mean,
like, yeah.
I mean, like, let's.
He's accustomed to being
Yeah.
overlooked.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm sure he's
But
not.
you know, we don't. Yeah.
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 We'll
you
figure
know.
it all out in
Yeah.
100 years.
Yeah.
Or some alien
Yeah.
will come and go.
You know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
There's a guy who mastered the language.
Yeah.
It was that
Yeah.
one.
It
was him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're adding some groove
Yes,
to make this fun,
of course.
right?
Yeah,
That's essential.
I think groove
It's
is
like-
essential.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
You have
honestly,
like good lyrics,
Yeah.
good melody. If there's like a good groove behind it too, then
It all comes together.
a complete package, I guess.
yeah. I mean, I think one of the special things about Snack Cat is that like. Is really how the rhythm section interacts with each other. Like it's
Yeah.
it's completely like I mean the pocket is there. It's really
Mm-hmm.
cooking and like it feels good. But there's also a certain amount of sort of looseness and improvisation as well. Even though like the parts are set, but they're just because we've played with each other for such a long time, even before Snack Cat. Like there is a comfort to sort of go certain places. Even when you're playing just kind of a solid groove.
He's like the engine driver,
Yeah.
right?
absolutely.
Yeah, it's true.
You and the drummer.
Yeah.
You're like
Yeah.
driving. You're driving. You're like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right? Is this different from jazz vocals? I was curious as to like you come to New York. You're essentially a jazz vocalist at that point.
I don't know if I'd necessarily. I don't really like the label of like a jazz singer because I think that sort of overlooks like. I mean,
It's very narrow.
it's
That's
narrow.
what I'm driving at.
It's narrow,
like-
and I think I will always be influenced by jazz and jazz vocals because that's really what inspired me to start. Wanting to be a musician, I suppose. Listening to Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan, and I just got really obsessed with jazz singers early
Nina
on.
Simone.
But
Sorry,
I mean, they're
it's
just
just me.
so incredible.
She's from Philly, right? Or
Is she Nina Simone? from
Really?
Philadelphia?
Or no, she's not. Or she's, maybe not. Or she lived here for a little while or something.
from-
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go.
Out by Sun Ra.
But I mean, there's so much that feeds into jazz. Like that's the thing. It's like jazz is such an umbrella term, and there's like so many things that
Yeah.
take influence from it. So that's how I kind of look at like what I do is I take aspects of like the jazz idiom, but then I want to also be influenced by the other things. So like funk and soul is something. I mean. The Donny Hathaways and Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye, I just became obsessed, Aretha Franklin, with that kind of tone and that sensibility. So, and then, you bring it into today and you've got hip hop, you've got neo-soul, you've got so many different things kind of going on. So yeah, to just call yourself squarely like a jazz singer, that's just not what I identify with, but I definitely think of myself as like a jazz musician in a way. So it's
Right.
funny. It's just
That's
labels.
kind of
and-
what I'm driving at. It's
Yeah.
like so jazz. We're submitting stuff for the Grammys, and they're like
Right.
jazz vocal album. And you're like, nah, they're just not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nope.
Yes.
Nope.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't sound like what somebody. It's almost as if they're defining it after it comes through the prism,
Yeah.
and then saying that. It's like defining sunlight as the beam that hits your
Yeah.
arm. Like, that's
Completely.
not sunlight.
Yeah.
It's much bigger than that,
Definitely.
So they
I
like
mean,
to put
there's
it in
hip hop.
boxes.
Like Kendrick Lamar's kind of makes like a jazz album in a way. You know what I mean? Like
To Pimp a
it's-
Butterfly is
y- you
very
know, there's
jazzy,
so
and his rhyme is
so many influences,
yeah.
but you wouldn't necessarily put that under the jazz category. Like it becomes very
I
blurred.
I think when they made that record, they absolutely
Well, maybe-
intended to put it
maybe
under the
they
jazz
did.
category.
Maybe they did.
And for the exact same reasons as what we're discussing,
Yes.
to kind of nudge the system
Yeah. Yeah.
to say, no,
Yeah.
this is what jazz can
Right.
do.
What-
Right.
And
Yeah.
these are the similarities
But I
between
love
jazz
that
and hip hop.
blurring of the lines. It's
What,
it's
what,
great.
what has been kind of interesting for us actually with this first release is that it actually has gotten a fair amount of like jazz radio play, and that's not something that we really expected. Like it's not you know, because it's like it's something that, you know, like someone who hasn't really heard jazz, you know, before will say like, oh, this sounds jazzy, you know. But for us, it does jazz, and I'm not against that. First of all,
Right.
That's great, you know.
We want to reach people.
Of course,
Definitely.
yeah, and I
Definitely.
love jazz, and I really like a lot of the stuff we do is jazz influence and jazz based, of course. But you know, that was kind of surprising to see like how a lot of people perceived it as.
Well, there's some reasons for
Jazz,
that. I
yeah.
wouldn't. I mean, a couple of simple reasons are people in jazz radio are going to pay attention to what comes through from Ropeadope. Right?
Yeah, of course, that makes sense. Yeah,
But also,
Yeah.
I think the people that are out there at jazz radio, at many of the non-commercial stations, college stations around the
Yeah.
country, and and especially outside the U.S., they're actually listening and they're going, "Oh, well, yeah, I really enjoy this song."
Yeah,
you know, they're
yeah,
still
totally,
actually
yeah.
curating. They're like, "Yeah," and it has those elements, and it sounds, you know, I'm not gonna define it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna,
No, and that's
I'm not gonna
cool,
be
yeah.
a purist here,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna put it on the radio, and then
Yeah.
they also understand what their listeners and the listeners understand what they're going to get delivered.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, if it's almost in a sense a comfort zone in a lot of ways.
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
this is just good, you know.
yeah,
Let's
yeah,
just enjoy it. So,
yeah.
I mean, there are a few reasons for that. Yeah.
yeah.
I want to bring it back. I have no idea how much time we have left.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Somewhere between 3 and 5.
35.
Oh, 35?
Don't
Cool.
try-
Let's keep
don't
going.
try-
Let's keep
don't
going.
try
We
this
got
at
more
home,
to talk
folks.
about.
This show was produced by speaking into a microphone. What's on the horizon? I want to say thank you for doing what you do. I know how difficult it is because I deal with this every day. The whiskey's kicking in.
Ooh,
I got
yeah.
a big smile on my face right now.
Had a good old time, yeah.
I know it's not easy for people who are out there. It is not easy to be a working musician and to pour this much creativity in the world. We've all seen exactly what happens for people who are lazy and who don't pour creativity and beautiful things into the world. We see that every day on the news. So I want to thank you guys for like making that your mission to put music and quality and beauty out into the world. What's next?
First of all, thank you for helping us do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's next for Snack Hat is we really want to be playing a lot of kind of festivals next summer and stuff like that. We're gearing up. We're thinking about finally, you know, starting to record a full length, you know, album since this was, you know, an EP, and, you know, recording a bunch more music. But we really want to, you know, kind of, we're starting to tour a little bit, and we really want to just kind of basically branch out, you know, with our audience. You know, we're constantly working on content. You know, in this day and age, obviously, just got to always keep kind of, you know,
Right.
building.
Something
and, you know,
else.
but yeah, but I really do feel like for this band, like, you know, really playing some more, like, you know, festivals and stuff like that would be a really good thing. Yeah, just we're always, you know, constantly writing new music, working on new stuff, and, you know, kind of improving the sound. And the good thing is, you know, we all really love each other and are very close, so whatever we do, at least it's fun along the way, you know.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So yeah.
We have a
He's
lot
like,
of fun.
what?
Yeah, we do have a lot of fun.
I don't know
It's
these
pretty
guys.
I don't
Jeff?
feel the same way.
Thank you so much,
Chantal.
Lewis.
Thank you, Louis.
Thank you so
It's
much,
been a
man.
pleasure.
Don't forget it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Snack cat.
Two
These are
words.
the snack.
Cat.
Yeah.
Cat.
Hit those T's.
Yeah.
Hard consonants.
Mm-hmm.